Hey, what's up? My name is Stash from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm going down memory lane with the Nozzle Air Force One. Oh, snap, 65 of 250, New York City. I have a streetwear brand called Subwear at the time and Recon. I was in Tokyo, was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Mark Parker. And at the time, we had a very good conversation, a lot of mutual friends, a lot of mutual interest. And he kind of took notice of my fascination with Air Force Ones. I probably even had a pair on, I'm sure I did. And when he asked me if I were interested in working on a shoe, what would I work on? And I kind of described this shoe, and that's how it started. Two guys had a conversation, look what happened. So to me, as a graffiti artist, one of the things, graffiti artists are known for is not being known, right? So it's kind of ironic that we're all marketing ourselves and trying to come forward or whatever. And so for me, in trying to invent an identity or sort of create icons that would sort of represent myself in the movement, the spray nozzle is probably, it's the tool of our trade. It's what we're all about. So to me, developing this pattern, which happened slightly before I got to work on the shoe, but really enhanced it and finalized it around the shoe, the birth of the pattern really was the shoe, was sort of like a nod to the, Tinker's use of the elephant or whatever you would call that on the Jordan. People that don't know what this is and look at it, first before you focus on it, can have that sort of crackled it takes on a different identity. The people that can't sort of make out the shape, and when they finally see it, and there's a story that goes with it, I think they're more into the idea of it. But that was my initial sort of take on sort of how do I best represent myself without using my lettering or color palette or whatever. And so creating icons within the graffiti community was really where I was trying to, communicate with. Yeah, because we talked about dropping the shoe in 3 regions, New York City, London, and Tokyo, we created 3 different color boxes. And so there was a limited edition shoe, but within each territory. So it was like, I believe, 1 of 250 New York, 1 of 250 London, and I believe Tokyo had 500 for some reason. I think so. I mean, it's been a long time. Don't hold me to that. So that's sort of like the origin of, numbering them and, the limited edition case. Initially, we talked about doing an action figure that would come with it. And honestly, it was the liabilities and all the logistics to pulling it together was a little too overwhelming to be, really getting down and stuff. So I ended up getting to make a little CD-ROM, right? Because pre-DVD, of some of my artwork that a friend of mine helped animate, a guy named Techno Bob, helped animate one of my Kubrick toys that I worked on with Medicom, with all the fat caps. And so it was sort of a little treatment that went with the shoe and sort of a little more storyline to my fat cap origin, I guess. I was into shoes as just somebody that was traveling, and wherever I went, I would stop in any shoe store. So I was fortunate enough to travel as a young age for work or whatever, and whatever city, whatever town, country, first place I would go was a sneaker store. But I wasn't part of the culture per se. I wasn't part of the community. And until the drop of the shoe, when I realized that there were people camping out and people coming from far and wide and people paying homeless people to stand online for them. And that's when I really got my first real glimpse of what the sneaker community really was and how dedicated they were and how they fucking represent, dude. And, really blew my mind. And I had a little bit of catching up to do. No, honestly, I don't want to say I was clueless, but it was more like one thing at a time. You can't get to step 4 without 1, 2, and 3, right? So, to me, I was very much like, all right, hey, let me digest what the fuck just happened here. That was really intense. And I didn't get it. It took a few more interactions with the community and really doing a bit more research. Because again, this was pre-internet. It was right at the start of, I remember asking a friend, hey, what does blog mean? Like, what the fuck is all this shit going on, right? I'm a dinosaur. I'm a little bit older. I come from a different sort of, like to this day, I have my kid explain shit on the phone. Like she's 17 and she knows everything. I'm like, I don't know. So, even then I was a bit antiquated, right? So I was still so impressed at how advanced the resellers, the diehard collectors, the people that just knew so much about me and the shoes and the, you know, the research and the knowledge and their dedication really blew me away. I was definitely, I can't say I was part of it. I just got my feet wet around this time. Yeah, it was you know, a lot of pandemonium. One of my highlights from the highlight reel is a really good friend of mine, Vinny Ponte, a amazing New York celebrity, downtown guy, skater, had a shop called Rival, had brought a friend of his by the shop right in the midst of all the pandemonium. And I was sort of like really ignorant, not really knowing. It happened to be Kanye West and his buddy Don C that he works with. And I don't know, I love hearing Vinny tell me the story because my view is skewed from being behind the counter. But he was like, you know, the story goes, I was like, hey, that's really good for him, but I have like 300 or X amount of people out front. I can't let dude cut the line. Like I didn't know. I don't know if I insulted the dude. I don't really know. You know, it was definitely it was, like I said, I was new. I was learning as I was going. There was no rules. There was no sort of older dude that schooled me. Come here, I'm gonna tell you how this is gonna go. It was definitely an interesting experience for me.
But he obviously wanted the shoes because he ended up waiting on.
He ended up getting the shoes. I don't remember how it worked out that, you know, if he waited, didn't wait. I just remember I was I couldn't just, yeah, come on in. I didn't do that with anybody. I was like, wow, this is really intense. I remember giving out water bottles and trying to just, you know, just keep a nice flow. I didn't really know what was going on. Again, I was probably the newest one on the block and it was my fucking shoe. I mean, beyond humbling, first of all. You take me and just sit me right down and school me, right? It was definitely a humbling sort of thing. I have to say, like, really, Dr. Bruce Kilgore, the guy who designed the shoe, is really the one. I think it's just really such an ode to what this shoe is. And my minimalistic approach to the shoe just sort of enhanced what was already such a beautiful, amazing, timeless classic, in my opinion, that, you know, I get a lot of credit that I don't know that I deserve in a weird way. Again, it's very humbling. It's very interesting that, you know, it's given back to me, but I think Nike already had it on lock and I just got to pimp their ride, as it were. And it was a really good time within the sneaker community and the entrance between artists working with athletic apparel, footwear companies. I don't really know. I would just say, you know, hats off to, you know, Bruce Kilgore, who designed probably the illest shoe ever, and that I got to touch it. I'm blessed that the audience responded as well as it has and still does to the shoe. You know, I mean, obviously the sneaker culture had a lot to do, like we talked earlier, about passion and, you know, the youth. It's probably such a youth-driven market more than any other sort of marketplace, really. And you know, I just think that there's not a lot of young shops as it used to be. I think the economic plane, you know, really, you know, just what's going on in the world really sort of had such an impact within our community that there's not as many shops that there used to be offering, and sort of like gallery-esque, really. We were all little galleries sort of doing our own marketing and then working with the big companies, sort of sharing their visions and telling their stories for the product. But every store had their own really sort of interesting environment, you know, and so there's not a lot of that anymore, you know, and I think that also affects the choices that people make. I don't really want to go to the big box. I'll just do it online. I'll have it sent. You don't have that sense of community. You know, the sneakers, I used to hang out at the sneaker line. I used to bug out because it was like so cool to me. And again, really interesting to just sort of watch this amazing culture sort of rise up and just sort of come really hardcore. I mean, really, I don't know any other culture that is as hardcore as what the sneaker community has sort of created.